Human remains found last week confirmed to be those of 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel, who disappeared in 2009 while partying with friends in Myrtle Beach. The teen seen for the last time on this hotel surveillance camera.
She asked me if she could go, and I told her no, and she asked me why. I said, because I don't know the kid you're going with. There's no parental supervision, and something's going to happen.
In April of 2009, an 18-year-old named Brittanee Drexel disappeared from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, never to be seen again. At the time, Brittanee, a resident of Rochester, New York, was on a secret trip with friends that her mother did not know nor approve of. But the rebellious teenager managed to go on an out-of-state trip with these friends behind her mother's back. And for the next 13 years, Dawn Drexel waited for her daughter to come back home. Until now. In a recent and shocking revelation, evidence has come to light about what really happened to Brittanee 13 years ago. But certain questions remain unanswered. Why was she targeted? Why didn't her so-called friends report her absence to the police? And why did it take all this time for her family to hear any news of her? Welcome back to Mysterious 7. My name is Matt, and today we are diving into the heartbreaking story of Brittanee Drexel, lost and found 13 years apart. Missing person cases are always the hardest to bear for the families of the victims. There is no closure brought by a funeral. Mourning is indefinitely postponed. And if hope remains alive for many years, so does the fear, the paranoia, and the endless questions that go unanswered. For Dawn Drexel, the nightmare began 13 years ago and ended only in May of 2022, when signs of her daughter's body were found. Brittanee Drexel was the daughter of Dawn Drexel and the stepdaughter of Chad Drexel, who adopted her and raised her as his own. Chad Drexel was in the military, and the family, consisting of both parents, Brittanee, and her two younger siblings, Marissa and Chad, ended up moving around a lot before finally settling in Chi-Lai, a suburban neighborhood of Rochester in the state of New York. Known to be a prosperous, progressive, and peaceful city, it was recently ranked as one of the best 5 places to live in New York State. But like all teenagers, Brittanee wanted more. One part of her dissatisfaction was a recent disruption in her family and home living situation. In 2008, Dawn and Chad ended their relationship, just around when Brittanee would have been about 16 to 17 years old. Brittanee had a hard time with the separation. Already at a sensitive age, the loss of her stepfather that she adored hit her hard, and may explain some of the subsequent conflict and animosity with her mother. Her grades also began to suffer, and she struggled with depression. Brittanee continued to live with Dawn, but still kept in close contact with Chad. At age 18, the girl seemed to be just a typical bubbly teenager. Brittanee was born on October 7, 1991. Her mother described her as a young girl who was attractive, athletic, and always had perfect hair and makeup. She liked to have fun with street fashions and was training to be a cosmetologist. She even dreamed of becoming a model one day. But for the time being, she loved playing soccer, hanging out with friends, and going out to eat. And she never caused her family and friends any particular concern. It is common for some teenagers to fall into a pattern of truancy and troublemaking, for example, and some will also fall into a trap of drug addiction, and unsafe lifestyle choices, and even self-harm. But Brittanee, on the face of it, was just a nice, sweet teenage girl who never really made any waves. Until one day, she just wasn't there anymore. In the 13 years following her inexplicable disappearance, there were a number of possibilities explored. Her mother, Dawn, wasn't the only one who was worried. Her ex-husband and Brittanee's stepfather immediately took steps to inform the police, who organized a statewide, then later a nationwide search. It was a hugely well-publicized case, and while physical evidence was still lacking, the finger of public suspicion pointed to many different possible perpetrators. Jennifer Oberer, Philip Oberer, and Alana Lipa were the names of the 3 friends that Brittanee was traveling with at the time. Since Dawn already told her daughter that she couldn't go on the trip, Brittanee ended up having a huge fight with her and moving out to stay with a friend for a few days, saying that she needed her space. But in reality, she secretly took off with her friends without letting her mom know. Afterwards, when she fell out of contact with her boyfriend John, he grew alarmed and alerted Dawn. John couldn't go on the trip due to work, but they were regularly texting until the very day that she went missing, and he was responsible enough to raise the alarm. Unlike her 3 friends on the trip who apparently fought with her, who were hostile, abusive, or tried to kick her out, they may have even left her stranded and completely alone at their shady, cheap hotel, a 2-star place called the Bar Harbor, which later closed down. Dawn later went public in an emotional letter in 2012 to say, "Not one person that was with my daughter helped me in any way. Not one of them ever contacted me with concern or offered any help, and not any of the parents of these people to this day have reached out to help or console me in my grief. It was and still remains a hard thing for me to understand. Most human beings have compassion for a total stranger, but not this group. I began to receive calls from my family and friends back in New York that these same people who were the last ones to see my daughter were posting nasty remarks about my daughter and mad because she ruined their vacation. Their slanderous lies and horrible actions only aided the pain I was suffering, along with all who loved Brittanee Drexel. But that is all they did. They have never told what happened or offered any additional help to my daughter's investigation, in my opinion. My daughter made mistakes, and one of the largest ones she ever made was when she trusted this group of people with her life. I later found out that the girls in this group of people treated my daughter poorly, and by Brittanee's text messages to her then boyfriend, it was revealed how miserable she really was. There is no doubt that the friends that Brittanee trusted couldn't be bothered with her happiness or safety, even after she had gone missing. There is no record of the 3 of them ever joining in the search or cooperating with the police beyond the basic minimum required to protect themselves from suspicion. In the meantime, the mother she lied to and ran away from was going frantic with fear and worry, trying to track her daughter down. Also in Myrtle Beach at the same time was a 20-year-old club promoter from Rochester named Peter Brozowitz, who was friends with Brittanee at the time. He had taken her to clubs and introduced her to his friends back home as well. Dawn grew suspicious when she found out that Brittanee had met Peter at the beach in South Carolina and wondered if he had entrapped the teenage girl for reasons of his own. On April 24th, Brittanee and her friends went to Club Kryptonite in Myrtle Beach, which, like the hotel, has since closed down. While she was there, Peter introduced her to 4 of his friends at the club: Anthony Shimizi, Philip Watson, Keith Cummings, and Matthew Abrams. The following day, Brittanee walked down to the beach near a hotel called the Blue Water Resort, a much nicer and more expensive place than her own accommodations at the Bar Harbor. This was where Peter and his friends were staying. Brittanee went to meet them quite a few times during her stay in Myrtle Beach. Her final trip to see Peter was on April 25, 2009. She walked from the Bar Harbor Hotel to the Blue Water Resort at around 8 p.m. CCTV footage at the Blue Water Resort shows her arriving. She was carrying a beige purse and wearing a black and white tank top, flip-flops, and shorts. The cameras recorded her leaving around 8:45. At the time, Brittanee was texting back and forth with Jennifer Ober, involved in some kind of a fight over a pair of shorts, according to the subsequent police report. Neither of the 2 young girls knew that this would be the last time they spoke, or that this minor squabble might lead Brittanee into real danger when she stormed off in a rage. Public attention centered on Peter for years afterwards. The Drexels even ended up appearing on Dr. Phil to confront Peter Brozowitz and his attorney. There were wild accusations of kidnapping, sex trafficking, drug dealing, and other crimes being thrown around. But the evidence was inconclusive, and no solid timeline could be established to link Peter with Brittanee's disappearance beyond a reasonable doubt. A man named Timothy Deshawn Taylor was accused in August of 2016 by the Charleston Post and Courier of committing Brittanee's murder. In a wild and highly sensationalized turn of events, 26-year-old Taylor was said to have abducted, raped, and killed the young girl. Later on, he was said to have thrown Brittaney's body into a pit of alligators. The informant was one Taquan Brown. Taquan reported that he had visited a stash house in McClellanville, South Carolina, in order to give money to Sean Taylor, Timothy's father. At the time, he apparently saw Brittanee running away from the house only to be recaptured. He said he saw Timothy pistol whip Brittanee and take her back inside. He then reported hearing the sound of 2 gunshots, which he assumed were the sounds of the young woman being killed. Taquan said he later saw a wrapped body being removed from the house, then dumped in one of the many alligator ponds in the area. Another informant also allegedly corroborated the information that Taquan gave. He said that Timothy had picked up Brittanee in Myrtle Beach and taken her to McClellanville, where he showed her off to his friends and associates. The information implied that Timothy Taylor may even have tried to sell Brittanee for sex trafficking purposes, but after she tried to escape, he then killed her and dumped the body. Now, this information is directly contradicted in the same statement by the same informant, who suggested that Timothy only killed Brittanee after the case became so highly publicized that it was then dangerous to keep her around. This later statement does not make sense with the rest of the timeline, and the motive for the killing then changes entirely. For this reason, this series of statements were not considered to be plausible evidence by the police. Taquan's highly colored account of events was never corroborated, though Chad Drexel said some inflammatory things accusing Taylor at the time. Without a doubt, Timothy Deshawn Taylor is a suspect in my daughter's disappearance and murder. My family and I will be following the FBI's request to keep specific details in our daughter's case under wrap until this horrible piece of trash goes to prison for life. After the guilty verdict, we will be happy to dispel these fairy tales that are being spun by Timothy's family. It is disgraceful the way this family and their friends are supporting and claiming innocence of a proven felon without even looking at the evidence presented and the facts surrounding the case. Eventually, Taylor ended up serving time on unrelated charges, and Brown filed a lawsuit to defend himself against defamation and death threats for his involvement in the case, reportedly from gang members of the Bloods. It was back in August of 2011 that Raymond Moody's name first came up in association with this case. He became one of the primary persons of interest in Brittanee's disappearance and was subjected to a police search of his home. With an extensive criminal record and the fact of his presence near the scene of Brittanee's last known whereabouts, the scrutiny was intense, but the investigation never led anywhere until recently. Just a few weeks ago, on May 4th, 2022, Raymond Moody turned himself in to the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office on an obstruction of justice charge. He then proceeded to confess to killing Brittanee 13 years ago. Subsequently, Raymond told authorities where Brittanee's remains could be found. On May 11th, the police found Brittanee's remains buried about 4 feet underground in the woods off a gated private drive in Georgetown, South Carolina. Brittanee was identified through dental records and DNA testing. Raymond Moody's long-term partner, Angel Vow, spoke to the media after his arrest. "I'm shocked, I'm stunned, but I don't really know that side of him. I know the person he was with me. He was fantastic to me." Despite the ongoing investigation, Angel continued to stand by Moody. She said, "I mean, they never had anything, dropped everything, let it go. So nothing came of it again until a week or two before he was arrested. I'm devastated for the family. I'm so sorry. But like I said, I didn't know that part of him. I would have described him as a kind gentleman who would give you the shirt off of his back. He loved." This is truly a mother's worst nightmare, Brittanee's mother Dawn has said recently at a press conference after this latest discovery. "I'm mourning my beautiful daughter Brittanee as I have been for 13 years. But today it's bittersweet. We are much closer to the closure and the peace that we have been desperately hoping for. Today marks the beginning of a new chapter," she said. "The search for Brittanee is now a pursuit for Brittanee's justice." The news is also a huge relief for Timothy Taylor's family, who had to live with suspicion, public speculation, and unwanted media attention for years. In light of the racially charged politics of this particular angle of the case, the update came as a refreshing piece of positivity for the American justice system. In a public statement, Timothy's mother Joan, who was visibly emotional, said, "To God be the glory, to God be the glory, to God be the glory." We understand the tragic loss of Brittanee, of her life, and it has changed her family forever. As a mother of 3, I truly understand. It pains me to even think about losing a child. The years-long fight against false accusations and media frenzy that have traumatized us, affecting every aspect of our lives. It has publicly questioned, without reason, our family's character, and has shaken us to the core. Our family stood by him and consistently spoke out against the false accusations that are too often directed at people who look like us. An age-old story in America. Today, I stand here surrounded by family and close friends and speak on Timothy's behalf because my son has endured enough. The FBI has now fully cleared Taylor of his connection with the case in an official statement to the press. Raymond Moody's priors include a 40-year, 4-month sentence in 1983 for sodomy of a child under the age of 14 while inflicting great bodily injury, rape with force, threat of violence, lewd acts with a child under the age of 14, and assault with intent to commit mayhem. He was released in 2004 on parole. Later on in 2008, he was charged with indecent exposure in Georgetown. That charge was later reduced to disorderly public conduct in court. In 2010, he was charged with first offense for failing to register as a sex offender. In 2012, Raymond was named as a person of interest in the disappearance of Crystal Souls. Crystal was 28 years old when she disappeared in Andrews, South Carolina on January 24, 2005. As of May 2022, Crystal remains missing, and thus far Raymond has not made a confession about her case. Currently, Raymond is charged with murder, kidnapping, and criminal sexual conduct in the first degree. Reportedly, he confessed under interrogation that he strangled Brittanee Drexel on the day she vanished and buried her body the following day. After a decade and more of grief, fear, and constant but unrewarded hope, Dawn Drexel finally has the answer to what happened to Brittanee. Although she hoped for more, there is some resolution and peace for her and Brittanee's other family members now, as well as for the thousands of other search and rescue volunteers, journalists, and police officers involved in the case over the years. But as this tragic drama continues to unfold in full public view, we want to know what you think about Brittanee's story. So tell us your thoughts in the comments and like and subscribe, and hit that bell button to our channel if you want fresh updates of criminal investigations in the news. We'll see each other again, folks. In the meantime, stay safe.